god, I love this character. As many of you know by now, Io, the Shattered Goddess, is our newest support. Io is coming with the Sun and Moon update that is currently available on the PTS, and will be available on live servers in mid-July. Guys, this character is so fun. Io is the most fun support I have ever played, and one of the most fun characters I have ever played in general. There's a reason I hyped up this character so much before they revealed her. I knew they were going all out with this one, and it 100% shows. I can't say I've ever been this impressed with a character before. Her visual design is incredible, very unique, very happy, and very cute. The voice is perfect for her lines are cute and funny, and the animations, oh my god, the animations are absolutely perfect. I gotta play some for you guys because wow, these are adorable. Her ears even react perfectly to everything she does. Past all the visual stuff, there is of course the gameplay aspect of her, which is of course the most important thing. That's what really decides if a character is fun or not, after all. I really love how this character brings a lot of new things to the game, as well as a little bit of old. And by a little bit of old, I'm talking about her weapon. For those of you who played way back in the day, Cassie used to have a short bow and not a crossbow. Her bow from back then was basically Io's bow now. It feels so nostalgic, and I know a lot of old players really appreciate that. The only real difference is that Io's of course doesn't hit as hard. Io's bow does 400 a pop, and back then Cassie's did 700 a pop. Makes sense because Io is of course a support, but the feel is still the same, and that's what matters. This weapon is also really good. A lot of people look at the DPS of it and write it off, but it's a really good weapon without a doubt. It gives you a lot of consistent, reliable damage. It fires projectiles, but they're fast projectiles, and they're relatively easy to land. 400 damage a pop definitely contributes to kills a lot. Consistent and reliable poke like that on a support is honestly pretty amazing. You of course aren't going to be bursting people down, but you'll definitely contribute to kills, clean up kills, and rack up a good amount of total damage by the end of the game. I had several games where I was competing with some of my tanks and even some of my DPS teammates with her when it comes to damage, when normally a support isn't anywhere close to them. Now what about all the new? Well, her heal is definitely something that is very new to the game. It is a resource-based heal that requires constant tracking. Both of those things are things we don't really have right now on any other healer, at least at base. Spirit's Domain Grok has those things, but that's a talent and it's not something most people use. Spirit's Domain also works pretty differently from Io's heal. Now as far as healing output, Io heals about 800 to 900 health per second, and that's pretty good. Ceres, another single target heal character, heals 1000 per second, so it's not too far off. Again though, Io requires constant tracking and a line of sight. This is what separates Io's heal from other healers. The other healers either don't require a line of sight, or they only require a line of sight for a quick moment. Now here lies my only problem with Io. Her healing output on paper is fine. However, the fact that Io requires constant line of sight makes her heal feel a bit weak. If Io is going to require constant line of sight, while others don't, then Io should output more healing. Because right now, to properly play around Io, you need to be constantly ducking behind cover and waiting for Io to fully heal you. While with other healers, you peek for a second, and you go back to what you were doing before. Io's heal makes the game feel slower because you're forced to play a lot slower. So if her healing was increased, it would allow you to go in and out of cover quickly. As far as her resource meter goes, this is definitely perfectly fine. It has a good base amount, and there are plenty of loadout cards you can use to regen your meter quickly, and we'll get to those later on. I do also want to point out that some maps, like Jaguar Falls for example, probably won't be too good for her because of the whole constant line of sight thing. Another thing that's really new is her fox, Luna. Luna is a deployable, or pet in this specific case, but this pet acts a lot like another player. Luna feels like a companion you would have in an RPG game, so in a way it could feel like your team has 6 members on it. I personally look at Io and Luna as two halves of one character though. I think that's closer to correct. Luna can attack and also stun if you mark people with your primary first. A little symbol appears over their head and Luna pounces on them and stuns them for 1 second. It also does a bit of damage. Luna also can move around the map and through terrain. Once you deploy her, her cooldown lowers quite a bit, and using the redeploy makes her move instead of redeploying her. It also keeps whatever health Luna had before moving. You can heal Luna though, and Luna can't be cauterized. However, you are the only one who can heal Luna. Your allies cannot. One of the craziest things about Luna is that Luna can both capture the objective and push the payload. At the start of the round, a lot of the time the teams don't go straight onto the point. They play slow looking for a pick before going to point. Well, you could put Luna on the point while doing that and Luna will cap, and if they ignore her then you get free cap progress. The enemy will likely be forced to attack her, and you can attack them while their attention is on Luna. Also, when you win the first team fight and you go to zone, and by zone I mean you leave the support on the point and you go out and dismount the enemy and hold them back so they can't get to point. Instead of leaving the support on the point, Io can leave Luna on the point, and go heal and zone with her team. Then when the point is captured, you can have Luna push the payload. It's a little weird though. I couldn't personally get Luna to sit on top of the payload, so I had to put her in front of it and let it push her on its own. Every time the payload turned, it would leave her behind though, so I had to go back and redeploy her back in front of it, so keep that in mind. Then there's her movement ability. It's a backwards leap. And guys, it may sound simple, but it's a crazy good movement ability for a support. There's even a card like Somersault on Cassie that can reset the leap when you get low. This is nuts. If a flank attacks you, you can leap back super far. And if they use their movement ability to chase you, and they end up getting you low, you can leap back again. This makes Io very difficult to kill. Pair this leap with good positioning, and you'll go on some pretty high streaks. There's also the fact that Io is rather small, so she isn't too easy to hit while leaping through the air. Io also has a few self-sustain options that we'll also talk about later. But first, let's talk about her ult. On the PTS, at least with the skin I used I guess, I couldn't see her ult projectile so I didn't get a perfect feel of it. But don't write this ult off. This is a very solid ult. The knockback on it is powerful, and it stuns people so they can't use movement abilities to get back onto the map. Even if they don't go off the map, it does still do 800 damage and that's a good amount. Like I said, it's good for getting people off the map easily. It's also good for getting people off the objective during overtime. And if a flank jumps on you, knock them back against the wall. Either you or your teammates will probably end up killing them. I don't know if this was intended or not, it probably was, it's just not on the ult's description, but while casting the ultimate, you are damage immune. This lets you counter several other ultimates as well as abilities. Now for her talents. I think all 3 of her talents are good. They're not too loadout specific either. If you have lifelink, this allows Luna to heal nearby allies for 300 health a second. This helps keep your team up a little better, and it does offer you some self-sustain because you don't have any in your base kit. Goddess's Blessing gives you 15% DR to whoever you're healing with your right click. This is also really good. It has synergy with other cards too. Making somebody bulkier while they're being healed definitely makes them a lot harder to kill. Tanks already have so much health that any amount of DR empowers them to easily run people over. Sacrifice saves you and heals you when you would have died and teleports you to wherever Luna is. However, it does kill Luna in the process. The talent also has a 60-second cooldown. This is something I see people write off too. Getting a pick on the support is the most valuable pick you can get, and this talent denies the enemy of that. Io is already pretty difficult to kill if the Io is playing right, and adding this on top of that could very well make Io feel immortal. Don't write this off because surviving is the most important thing a support can do, and that's of course because if they keep surviving, then their team keeps surviving. Okay, now let's go over some loadouts. These are all some loadouts I came up with. They feel pretty good and work pretty well. As time goes on, I may tweak them a bit, but these are definitely really solid starting loadouts that you could use if you'd like to, that is. So this first loadout can work with either Goddess's Blessing or Sacrifice. Its main emphasis is on the card Swift Arrows. It gives your target bonus speed while healing them. It's at 40% here. Like I said, the DR has synergy with this card. They both make your target a lot more difficult to kill. The speed itself has a variety of uses. It allows the target to go in faster, to strafe mid-fight faster, and to run away faster. My first game on IO, I kept my Inara alive through certain death with the speed and DR. My Inara made it across the center of Bazaar at no health due to this combo, and they wouldn't have survived without it. Then there's Moonlight Garden at level 4. This card regens your meter when hitting enemies with your bow. This to me is the most effective way to regen your heals, so I'd say it's a must-have. IO has a very solid weapon that you're going to be using a lot, so you're going to be constantly regenerating your meter. 8% may not seem like a lot, but it stacks with the base regen. And I have extra base regen as a filler card, which of course also stacks. So in 3 arrows, you basically get to full from nothing. There's also Restored Faith. This gives you some self-sustain while healing. 30 doesn't seem like a lot, I know, but it is 30 for every heal tick you fire. And there is like 200 of them, so it does add up. It's not super fast healing, but it'll keep you alive pretty well. Then finally, there's Crescent. Like I said, this card is amazing and is a must-have at least level 2. Your movement ability is so good, and this reset makes it even better. The next loadout is for lifelink specifically. I've already explained most of these cards. The only new one is Broken Deity. This increases the deploy distance of Luna. This is definitely a good card to have since you're going to be healing people with Luna. Also, I don't think you have to run Restored Faith with lifelink. I think Luna herself offers you enough self-sustain. If you wanted to, you could probably squeeze it in there though. There's also a card called Protectors that gives you meter regen while being close to Luna. It does have good synergy with the talent on paper, but I do think Moonlight Garden is way better. Now, you of course don't have to take the loadout card for card or point for point, but something similar is what I'm recommending. Like I said, these loadouts will probably evolve a bit over time, but right now these loadouts are my recommendations. IO does have a lot of really good cards, but I think these stand above them in more situations. Anyway, if I'm looking at the overall difficulty and skill gap of the character, I definitely do want to say that it's higher than most healers. I think the only one I don't want to say IO takes more skill than is Damba, but I don't want to outright say Damba takes more skill either. I haven't really decided on where the two stand with each other. To me, Damba does feel easier, but that's probably because IO is new and Damba is not. And a single click heal is easier to work with than a line of sight reliant tracking heal, especially since a lot of people make it hard to get line of sight of them. There is definitely a learning curve there, and playing her feels really different, because we don't have another support that plays like this. Managing resources, balancing attacking and healing, constantly tracking targets with your heal, it all feels very different and it takes a bit of time to adjust to. I have no doubts that a really good IO can do a lot because this character does offer a lot. Now, if you're wondering about items, Chronos is normally what you get on most supports, but IO's heal isn't tied to a cooldown, so there's no point in getting Chronos. I also don't think her ultimate is powerful enough to justify morale boost. Her weapon though, again, is really good and really consistent. You're gonna be using it a lot, so Cot is a great idea. Wrecker on her isn't something you probably want to get unless nobody else gets it, or in case your team needs a second Wrecker for heavy barrier comps. At Wrecker 2 you're doing 1000 a hit to barriers, and that's not bad, I'd say. As for yellow items, Nimble makes you a bit harder to kill than you already are, but I'd personally say to get that after a red item. But yeah, if you can get on PTS, I definitely would, so you can give her a try, because IO is so very fun. I feel like even people who don't like playing supports will like her. If you can't get on PTS, you definitely have a real treat coming your way in July. And yeah, that's pretty much it guys. I want to thank you all for watching. I very much appreciate it, and I'm gonna see you guys laters. Bye.